Hi, I'm Tim of the WatchBox at Dubai Watch Week 2021 with a three-way discussion about current topics in the watch industry. I have off to my right Pierre, Jacques, CEO de Bethune. I have Edouard Meylan, CEO H, Moser Cie, and the man most likely to upstage me, Max Büsser of MB&F. Guys, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Max, I'm going to make this tough. You're getting the first question. What do you do as the owner of a brand that has bookings out to outrageous timeframes when there's not enough supply, the wait lists are extending, and you feel bad about excluding clients? How do you make those calls, and how do you deal with that as a brand?
I haven't found a solution yet, but it's getting more and more aware. Actually, Dubai Watch Week was the moment I had so many younger collectors come up to us and say, I've always loved the brand, I can finally afford it, and now I can't have it. And I was actually telling the team just yesterday, there's something wrong now, because of course, it's always been the VIP clients who get the pieces, meaning those who spend the most, which excludes a certain enormous part of the population, who often are more enthusiastic about the product, the brand, and I haven't found a solution, but it's just dawning on me that this is not right, and we have to find a solution.
So Edouard, now here's a question. Knowing that you've been in watch distribution for years in the West and the East, we've seen in the third quarter of this past year, for 2 months, the United States was the top export market for Swiss watches, and mainland China for 1 month was the top market. It's no longer all about Hong Kong and Singapore. Is this a permanent paradigm change, and how do you shift your marketing to stay in touch with those markets?
Well, it's tough to see for the future, but it's true that the US has been extremely strong in the recent years and months. I think for independents, it's incredible. I think the awareness there has grown, and as Max said, it's difficult to cope here, but it's difficult to cope everywhere. I mean, it's younger, and China for us is just starting. They don't know independent yet, and once they start knowing independence, I think the troubles that we're facing now, talking about supply, talking about offering the right products to the right risk, people who really appreciate, will be even a bigger nightmare. So in terms of marketing, well, of course you want to be known by as many people as possible, while protecting the equity of your brand and delivering the highest quality product. But it's true that for us, we invest a lot in the US and China at the moment. Hong Kong and Singapore are still extremely relevant. We have a very, very good community there, very knowledgeable, who like to push us also in terms of creativity. I think it's the same probably for all of us. We get a lot of inspiration from there, so we're going to continue to be very active there. We at H Moser, we have an office in Hong Kong, and that's from there we kind of manage the entire region. That's also where we will open our first Moser boutique on our own, not with partners. So yeah, it's still a strategic market.
Pierre, we spoke a little bit earlier about the change in the customer since you entered the watch industry. More connected, maybe more online, but could you elaborate on that, how the customer's changed since even you were in your first term as CEO of de Bethune?
Yes, I think now, and as Max was mentioned, there is a new generation can access to the information much more easier than before, and they are all connected. And this new generation now, they're really more active, and they can buy the product, because also probably the crypto and also the economy now was changing dramatically these two past years, and it's really changed. If you look in an auction during the auction now on the floor, you see that 60% of the people are probably they're under 30 years old. So really we have a completely new generation start to love independent and to go to watchmaking. So yes, changed a lot.
And Max, you've been via Jaeger-LeCoultre and Harry Winston, part of the watch industry since the 90s. How have you seen the turnover, maybe the generational turnover in the watch customer evolve since then?
Wow, that's a powerful question. I think 30 years ago, we were just geeks talking to geeks. It was a miniature group of clients. There was no internet. People who would read watch magazines. There was absolute minority. Then the media got much more interested in watches, and that sort of opened the game. The brands became much bigger, had much bigger budgets. and started attracting a whole new sort of client who was starting to morph after 15 years into often status, and less into knowledge. And we had a peak of that arriving before COVID. I felt status was the thing, and it's not our clients, it's not the people we speak to. When you wear something like this, probably people just think you're crazy. But COVID sort of changed the thing. It's for all of us independents. We suddenly had all these people who got interested in what we were doing. I do not exactly know why. Maybe it's because they were at home, maybe because they had to relook at their life and maybe just showing off didn't make that much sense anymore. But I think all of us got this enormous influx of people who wanted to hear real stuff, real watchmaking, humanity, and that seems to have grown. Of course, for us, it's exponential. We craft a few hundred pieces a year, and suddenly you have 200 more people interested. That doubles your demand. But I really see a segmentation now, which is much more interesting for us independents in general and real watch lovers.
Thank you. Edouard, another business question. You're my MBA guy. So I got to ask, what effect has Brexit had on your ability to sell watches in the UK? Because it's a top 10 market. It's always up there on Swiss exports, but it's been dropping in the last 2 years. How has that affected your ability to be in that market and deal in that market?
Well, to be in there is not an issue. I think it's more for the customers to buy, especially for the tourists. I think there's a lot of tax issues, and the retailers are still trying to figure it out. I think at the moment we work with big organizations like Harrods, and I think there's been kind of quick fixes to try to find ways so that people can export, but I think it's still a bit of a mess, and I hope they figure it out soon, because otherwise they're going to continue to drop down.
Well, fair enough. So that remains unresolved. Stay tuned. Pierre, you were in publishing with GMT Magazine. You covered the industry, but you've also been part of the industry. So from a media perspective, do you see print as still relevant, or do you see media coverage of the watch as increasingly moving towards social media and new media?
Yes, it is a really good question, and of course, I still, very passionate about publishing, and also I cannot deny what I did in the past. But really, what I see today is that 80% of our business, the return we get, is the social media. You post a new release on Instagram directly. I say in the next 2-3 hours. You get the return that you get in print for a couple of months. So this is sad, but probably you have things are changing, and maybe people will come back as people are coming back to vintage watch and to vintage the Bethune. Maybe they will come back to the vintage publishing. So let's mean that maybe we will have growing interest for magazine.
If I may, it also I think maybe depends on when Instagram changed their algorithm. Because for us, Facebook was super relevant, and now it's totally irrelevant. So because they changed all the algorithms, and so I don't know if you guys saw that, but
well, it's relevant in a different way. I think Facebook is a great way to really engage with people. You have discussions, whereas on Instagram it's like a instant comment and that's it. Well, I find on Facebook with the groups, you have an amazing group where you really talk to your community, whereas I think on Instagram you feed your community. So I think it could be a combination of both in the future still.
Well, that's fair, and it is an evolving situation. It could change as soon as next year. But one, I'd say, quandary that a lot of brands are facing right now is, and we'll see this from independents all the way up to Rolex, but there are people who, for whatever reason, have front-of-the-line privileges. They're able to get a watch and then almost immediately sell that watch. Is this something that's on your radar? Is there anything you do to try to screen to prevent this? Is it something that you generally frown upon?
Of course, but we're just at the beginning of this. So it's a new paradigm for us. We're learning. It's, of course, much more complicated if you don't manage 100% your own distribution. If you go through a local partners, you're not going to start telling, at least we're not in the point of telling our retailers who you're allowed to sell to and not. We would like them to only give pieces to people who actually love them. That's what we would like. It was interesting. We live with the Mad One concept, which we launched in June, just for our MB&F customers. So we've delivered 450 pieces, and we've heard of 3 pieces being flipped. So I thought, okay, but that means that, and it was interesting that the 3 pieces we found were actually people who had already resold their MB&F since. So they didn't have an attachment to the brand. So we've understood that now it's having an attachment to the brand which is the most important, and it's not the wealth you have and how many watches you buy.
I think when you said, I mean, it's difficult when you don't control, but we work with retailers whose responsibility it is to control. And I think for us, we really tell them, like, you have to be careful. And now we track flippers, and it's usually always the same people, and eventually they won't get watches anymore if the retailers do their job. And as demand increases, they also want people to colonize wrists that actually, as you said, are excited, are super happy to wear it, and maybe stop giving to those people who just are there to make a quick money on the product. And we know who they are, and the retailers know who they are. So if they want to do it, and as the brands get a little bit more power, they will stop. I'm sure eventually that will slow down a little bit.
Now any of you guys can answer this.
I don't know if that's good for WatchBox.
No, it's good. That's good. That's good. I can roll with the punches here. They're coming from every direction. Do any of you follow the auction results for your own brand of watches? Auctions are now huge. They're almost making the mainstream media coverage. They're a very big deal in the industry, and they do have an effect on pricing. So do you follow these auctions?
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Because I will say yes, it's really related to who you are now. Is the result in the auction where you are
gives
in
the
market?
pulse.
Give you the
Yeah, to some extent.
picture.
Well, it's a tricky one because people who actually buy at auctions, you need 2 to have a great price. And we've got a group of people who are interested in our brand, which is a fraction of the big brands. So sometimes a piece will not do that well. It doesn't mean that particular reference is not in demand. It's just that there wasn't the second guy who was actually bidding against the first guy. So we just, yesterday in Philips, there was a platinum perpetual, which went for $250,000 when the retail was originally, I think, 168. So we're like super happy, but we're every time so nervous. But it was a good thing because clearly the auction house had done the things well. We hadn't even promoted that particular auction. There's so much things going on, we had actually forgotten about it. You need a bigger captive audience to really make sure that the prices at auction are your barometer.
So now I'm going to start throwing a couple of questions out that any of you can take up. This is sort of a general Q&A section. I want to ask your philosophy on retail, because clearly these days there is the temptation to just sell direct. Independent brands are very hot. Selling to a retailer at a wholesale price so he can realize the retail price means you are giving up some control and profit. So what's your philosophy on factory stores versus authorized dealers? Is one better, is the other better, or do you need both?
I believe
we need both.
But we need more experience. I think one doesn't live without the others. We're still small. We need people to enter stores, to compare, to look at other brands. We need the retailers to be there we cannot open boutiques everywhere. You need a presence of the brand in the markets to provide the right level of service. But I think the retailers have to evolve as well. What we do is we limit to 10% of our production that we sell online, and then there's a waiting list. And then that allows us to, one, give a better price on our products because we have a little bit more margin. We can invest more in the market. It allows us to provide certain markets where there's no presence. So I think all in all, everybody wins. A lot of our retailers, we drive sales to them because either we already sold out or because it's in markets where we have an exclusive partnership. Dubai, for example, we don't sell direct. We have Sediki, they are our partners. We drive in a lot of sales from our e-commerce. So for me, it's really the future is this combination. We might also have stores that are not there just to sell. I think we see what AP with the AP houses are doing. I think that we will see more and more of those. Maybe even the bigger retailers will do that. And we could be part of that.
Well, certainly that's an interesting perspective there, that you need a blend. Speaking of bifurcation, it seems that with China and the US now, either 1 and 2 or 2 and 1 in order as the largest markets, you have two very different tastes in style, in watch size, in complication, in the use of gems. Do you need to have dual track product development now, or can you sell the same watches in both markets?
Don't look at me.
I think it's changing a lot. A few years ago, China, everybody was like, oh, you need to do yellow, rose gold, silver 40 millimeter. It's not the case. The success of AP today is that they didn't start doing this. The brands that are failing in China today are the brands who try to do that because they wanted to provide the right products for the demand. I think that the Chinese consumer have shifted towards AP, Patek. They want steel, they want integrated bracelet, they want beach to tuxedo kind of watches. And what's the next step? Independence. So I think we shouldn't adapt to the market, they will come to us.
Yes,
That's our
exactly.
strength. We've become who we are because we didn't create products for the market. That's why I say don't look at me.
Yeah.
It's like,
The brands that are failing
is-
today are all the brands that try to adapt to a market because they lost their identity. I mean, at some point, you know that. I mean, everybody was doing the same bloody watch because that's what you could sell in Lucerne, in Interlaken, in Paris, in Beijing, in Hong Kong, in Singapore to the Chinese community, and they have changed.
Watchmaker MB&F is his own design, Moser, the Bethune, because we follow our vision, our aesthetic, and our own taste. We're not making a watch specifically for one kind of people, but we're first making what we like and what we convinced that it's a nice and a good product.
I think the situation all three of us are now, which is on total over demand, allows us even more to keep control of our creative process.
Yeah.
What's interesting is like we're not in China, we're not in Japan, we're not in India, we're not in Russia, we're in all these major luxury watch brand, we're not in Korea, etc. And there's no way we can even give 50% of what the demand is. So clearly we're not even going to look at that.
Okay. Now, this is the era of the steel sports watch. It's premature to say dress watches are dead, but what do you see as the future of this genre, which is very traditional? It's integral to the industry. It's been the cornerstone for most of a century plus of the wristwatch. How do you approach dress watches in an era when everyone seems to want something just like a Nautilus?
It's interesting. I created the Evo Perpetual, and was really the watch I wanted to wear every single time, and I could. And then I realized, what the hell have I done? What have I actually sort of made obsolete all the other pieces we've created? And I was wearing it non-stop for 6 months and thinking, what have I done? And then after 6 months, I was bored of wearing all the time the same watch, even though I love it. And I started taking the other. So luckily, I think there is completely all the options. Yes, it's great to wear a Nautilus or a piece which you can wear at any given time. But if you're a watch lover, I'm not talking of status again. If you're a watch lover, you love watches. I buy watches. I've never bought that many watches of all different brands in the last 12, 14 months. So if you love watches, I don't think it's an issue.
Pierre, I got a question for you because all of your brands have been recognized at the GPHG over the last 2 years. You're coming off your 4th win in the GPHG, of course, in the tourbillon category. And I'm wondering, what is the real value in awareness or consumer feedback that you get from winning at the Oscars of watchmaking?
So it's a fantastic, exposure that you get for probably a short period of time. It's, I say, that it's always reassure your collector, your customer, if you get that recognition. And GPHG for sure is really the Oscar of the watch industry. I think the two best platform to be recognized is the GPHG, or actually also Only Watch, even if for charity. You have these two main events that really give a great exposure to your brand.
And either of you can take that, Max or Edouard, if you'd like to reflect on that.
What is most important for us is for our team. You cannot know how proud our team is when we get a GPHG, because it's jurors who are from the industry who are judging us, and even though we definitely don't do that to get the kudos, when it does arrive, it makes them super, super proud.
I can appreciate that. Now, I'm going to take this counterclockwise. So I have two questions that I'd like each of the three of you to answer. And we'll start with Max. The first question is, what product or brand or trend in the industry that is not integral to your own brand impressed you in the last year or two, since the last Dubai Watch Week?
What have I? Not because he's here, the Streamliner.
Yes.
I thought, I mean, you Moser guys took an insane risk. It created something which was with the DNA but completely revisited. I thought that was amazing. What's interesting I found is that because we've been doing collabs for many years, it's the resurgence, or now finally collabs are arriving a lot, which is a little bit scaring me because I hope it's not going to become like in the fashion world or the sneaker world where you don't even understand anything and everybody's collaborating with everybody for exactly 12 seconds and a half. So I hope that these collabs are meaningful. I mean, we had a fantastic one with H. Moser, and we took a lot of risks doing a double collab. I think that's the biggest thing I'm seeing now, everybody working with everybody, which is cool, but just be careful.
Edouard, was there a product or a company or a person in the industry that really stood out to you in the last 2 years outside of Moser?
Well, I think for me, it's what we talked about since the beginning. It's really this uptake of independence, and we've been, love to say, eating shit for many years, you know, and we all know what we went through to bring those brands where they are today, and to be now, like, you know, in the spotlight to some extent, and having people recognize the hard work. As Mike said, it's not just financial. It's the people in the office, the watchmakers, like having all those people coming and visiting and giving feedback and recognition at DJ PhD or Only Watch is just amazing. I mean, it's, you know, you have people who believed in that, investors, like, you know, in my case, my family, but also the people who actually had the possibility to work in a big manufacturer, but decided to work in a small one where everybody told them like they're gonna go bust, and then suddenly see this whole category go up. I mean, I believe we all had the dream that one day that would happen. I wouldn't have never dreamed that it would be to that extent. It's really like a hockey stick that you just, I mean, I hope it doesn't stop, because I feel there might be a post-depression if that stops. But it's just amazing, and it's great to live that time in leading a brand at the same time.
Pierre, was there a product or a person or a business that really stood out outside of Bethune in the last 2 years?
Yes, for me, really, the product will impress me the most, but it's not a small independent brand, but is the design and the Octofinissimo from Bulgaria. That's, for me, it's really a new iconic pieces, and in a short period of time, this model went on almost every collector's wrist.
But don't you think there's too many variations of it? I always wonder how far can you go into creating all those different versions? Maybe it's a question.
There is many variations, but you know, when I saw the pieces the first time, you know, I directly decided to acquire one, and it's a great piece. As you know, the railroad has been, you know, became an icon, and you know, the Nautilus. I think really this is the third icon of this.
And what they did amazingly well is to be able to continuously have those extra flat, very thin, whatever the complication. This is amazing.
I had the privilege of working with Fabrizio for the last 2 years on a collab, and first of all, honestly, this guy is incredible. I mean, he is incredible. He draws all the time. Every time we sit down, he's sketching. And you can see that in Bulgaria, the bulimia of novelties. Yeah. We often say, big brands don't create. Look at Bulgaria. I mean, not in watches and jewelry, they're constantly coming out. And just, if you see, Fabrizio's just drawing, and Jean-Christophe goes, go. Wow. So I think it's also a testament that they have a lot of courage, and they've created non-stop. And I think it's an interesting choice. And I got myself also Octo.
You're definitely right about Fabrizio. I was here early in the morning. He says he's obsessed with shapes. He was standing on his tippy toes taking pictures of the Dubai skyline for inspiration. He doesn't stop.
He never stops.
but neither do you. And you've spoken in the past about the strength that comes from facing a setback or a failure and how you built on that and came back stronger. So I want to ask all three of you about a setback or a failure that you experienced at any point in your career in the watch industry, what you learned and how you came back stronger, or how you used that moving forward. So Max, was there a setback that stands out?
Well, I think I've spoken a few times about the fact that in the last 16 years we had 4 really tough years. 2007, where we nearly went bankrupt before actually delivering the first piece. I say we, I was all alone in my flat. 2009 because of global crisis, 2012 because there were 3 issues at the same time which like did a triple slice and cut us in half. 2014 because I'd become cocky and I'd put my company in danger, and that taught me something. In 2014 we nearly went down because financially I'd completely overstretched the company, thinking I could actually create 2 movements a year. Already doing 1 movement a year is insane. There's like 2 completely new movements. And it just teaches you that it's great to fail if you can get back up on your feet, because if you always succeed, you start believing your own narrative and you don't pay attention anymore, and you're way closer to going right into the wall. So it's good to fail, not too much, but it's good to get knocks because they bring you back to reality. And the success we're all living is super dangerous, super dangerous.
Well, I didn't get close to bankruptcy. We faced bankruptcy with my previous company, which was a mobile phone company, and it was an amazing experience because it taught me, a lot of aspects of creativity and pushing the boundaries and simple things like cash management. But what it taught me as well is that even though I was that close to the wall and obviously going into bankruptcy, I couldn't see it. I was as an entrepreneur, I was sure this would work, even though everybody was telling me that it had failed. And I came to realize that actually you need to listen to those people a little bit, not to everybody, but you need to have your core people that can give you this kind of 360 degrees or 10,000 meters high perspective on you and your business. And if you can manage to build this internal team, but also advisors around you that can give you that, and you're able to listen to them, then you're much stronger as a person and as a company. And I think without that failure, I don't think we would be where we are with Moser today.
Thank you.
Same for the Bethune. I think I was close to hit the wall more than one time. I think when I joined the company first time in 2011, it was already a very, very difficult time for the Bethune. Then after the second wall came in 2015 with the Euro crisis and or 2014 even, and the crisis in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. It was also a very, very difficult time for the Bethune, but also for the old independent at that time, because maybe many market was frozen. Then, yes, after a wall, usually comes a second wall. It's why now what I really learned is that if you want to expand, to grow, really do it organically and take time. Don't listen people that don't take the pressure on yourself to trying to go too fast. Just keep your feet on the ground and follow your feeling, and also look a little bit in your back what was happening, and I think it's also part of our success today is because we was facing this difficult period, all of us, that now we are not I say yes man anymore or a B2. We more strong, more self-confident, and we know where we want to go.
This has been WatchBox and the Big Three at Dubai Watch Week 2021. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you so much.